SAFEPATH Audio Boosters Technical Course. Presented by Eaton. This e-learning course provides the basic information a field installer or technician needs to mount, wire, operate, and troubleshoot Eaton's SAFEPATH Audio Boosters SPB80/4, SPB160, and SPB320. Key features and specifications are also covered as a benefit to specifiers and engineers.
We'll consider features and specifications, layout, mounting, wiring, setup and testing, operating, and troubleshooting. The SAFEPATH Audio Boosters boost system power. 3 models are available: 80, 160, and 320 watts. They connect directly to a 25 or 70 volt speaker circuit. That makes them ideal for retrofit, upgrade installations requiring added power. Total system potential can be as much as 5,000 watts of audio power. The SPB160 and 320 offer audio power only. The SPB80/4 offers 2 strobe output circuits. These output circuits are 24 volt DC and offer up to 2 amps of current. The SPB80/4 offers a single audio output of 80 watts. The SPB160 features 2 audio outputs of 80 watts, and the SPB320 features 4 80-watt outputs. All of the audio boosters can be driven by a line level input, a 25 volt input, or a 70 volt input. All 3 models feature battery standby sleep mode, are fully supervised, and feature comprehensive trouble reporting. Now let's look at the basic layouts. The SPB80/4 has 1 80-watt audio output and 2 24 volt DC strobe NAC outputs, each rated for 2 amps. The SPB160 has 2 80-watt audio outputs and no strobe outputs. The SPB320 contains 2 SPB160 motherboards. Therefore, it has 4 80-watt audio outputs and no strobe outputs. When unpacking, check the exterior of the shipping container for any damage. Then the interior of the container. If no damage is present, compare the contents of the inventory list against the contents of the shipping container to ensure receipt of all components. To mount the unit, remove the enclosure door by simply lifting up on its hinges. Do not apply excessive pressure to the PC board or its components, including field wiring terminals and connectors. Mount the panel in a location within the environmental limits specified in the latest UL Standard 864 for indoor control panels. Do not locate the panel in a hazardous area. Mark and drill mounting holes for appropriate screws and anchors to ensure secure mounting to the type of surface at the selected location. The panels have numerous openings for conduit entrance and screw holes for secure wall mounting. Attach conduit fittings to the enclosure. Mount the panel. Make sure that all dust and debris is removed from the bottom of the enclosure. Then replace the enclosure door. All terminal blocks on the SPB power boosters are removable. To remove a terminal block, pull the block straight up from the circuit board as shown in this figure. Attach wires to the desired connections, then plug the terminal block back on the board, being careful to match the pins. Good wiring practice says always provide proper strain relief for all wiring not in conduit. Note that the AC power input wiring is non-power limited. Route it on the left side of the enclosure using one of the knockouts on the left side of the enclosure. Route all power limited inputs and outputs to the right side and top of the enclosure. Also, for power limited circuits, make sure that all input power sources, such as an alarm and trouble relay connections, NAC inputs, and auxiliary inputs, are power limited. Shielded wire is not required on any output circuits. If shielded wire is used, connect the shields to the ground terminal block inside the enclosure. The audio boosters have two different motherboards. They are the SPB80/4 motherboard and the SPB160 motherboard. The SPB320 contains two SPB160 motherboards. The audio boosters are wired to the SP40S and to other audio boosters. The audio boosters can be wired to the SP40S in the 2-wire or 4-wire mode. The basic difference between the 2-wire mode and the 4-wire mode is this. The 2-wire mode is generally used when no secondary operations, such as background music, telephone paging, are being used on the SP40S, and the least amount of connection wires is desirable. The 4-wire mode is generally used when secondary operations, such as music and telephone paging, are being used on the SP40S. The differences are this. In 2-wire mode, if any one audio booster has a trouble, then all audio boosters connected to the SP40S lose secondary functions. In 4-wire mode, if one audio booster has any trouble, only that audio booster loses secondary operations. Here's a good illustration of 2-wire mode. The connection wiring is minimal. 4-wire mode requires the extra pair of wires between the panels. Let's take a look now at the terminals and functionality in 4-wire mode, 70-volt operation, of the SPB160 audio booster. This is the most common configuration. Let's take a look now at the terminals and functionality in 4-wire mode, 70-volt operation, of the SPB160 audio booster. This is the most common configuration. There are 5 jumpers on the board that must be set for 70-volt operation. This is very important. If the output is set for 25-volt and 70-volt speakers are used, the system will produce very little sound. For 4-wire operation, jumper JP7 must be removed. Also, switch number 3 on the first audio booster in the system chain must be set for CC or contact closure. Subsequent boosters placed downstream must be set for NAC. The SPB320 contains two SPB160 motherboards. The SPB80 and the SPB160 PC boards are similar in appearance. The SPB80 contains a strobe input and two 2-amp strobe outputs. The SPB160 does not have strobe circuits. The SPB160 has two 80-watt audio outputs. The SPB80 has one 80-watt audio output. The SPB320 contains 4 80-watt outputs and no strobe outputs. The SPB80/4 has strobe input and return terminals, AC treble terminals, audio input and return, and auxiliary input and return. There is also provision for battery terminals, audio output, and 2 strobe outputs. All units feature a series of jumpers and switches. These switches and jumpers provide the functionality for proper operation. Functions such as audio input voltage may be selected. The audio output voltage. The ground fault detection circuitry may be enabled. Good common sense troubleshooting should include a discussion of speaker wiring circuits. Audio circuit lengths depend on the total wattage of all the speakers, operating voltage, and the wire size. The most common voltage used is 70 volts. 25 volts is also used. 70 volts can transmit 8 times the distance as 25 volts using the same amount of wattage and wire size. Also, 70 volts RMS is less susceptible to noise interference and does not require shielded cable. Let's illustrate the point about operating voltage. Here are 2 speaker wiring charts, one for 25 volt operation and one for 70 volt operation. Observe the wire distances for 40 watts on number 16 wire for both 25 and 70 volts. The wire distance for a 40-watt load at 70 volts can be as much as 8 times the distance for 25 volts. Setup and testing. Inputs. Each SPB audio booster has a single audio input. The SPB80/4 also has a strobe NAC input. The audio booster input can be a selectable 1 volt, 25 volts, or a 70 volts RMS audio signal. Remember, always apply AC power before applying battery power. Always remove battery power before removing AC power. Failure to do so can cause damage to the SPB audio booster. If the yellow system trouble LED and the trouble alert sounder should operate during testing and setup procedures, stop. Observe the trouble LEDs and proceed to the troubleshooting section of the audio booster technical manual. The two 12-volt DC rechargeable batteries are connected in series for 24-volt operation.
Two 12-volt 12-amp-hour rechargeable batteries can fit inside the audio booster enclosures. As per referenced in NFPA 72, the battery charger section can charge batteries equaling 24 volts DC at 33 amp hours. Batteries larger than 12 amp hours must be placed in a proper enclosure, such as the Wheelock Battery Cabinet, BATC.
The trouble indicators on the audio boosters include ground fault, expansion trouble, audio open and short LEDs, battery charger trouble, an AC power indicator, and the audio limiters for the outputs.
Most trouble conditions can be identified by a yellow LED indicator. Chapter 8 in the Audio Booster Technical Manual covers troubleshooting extensively. If problems persist, contact technical support at Eaton. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation. If you have any questions, please reach out to your local sales manager, or you can email us at lifesafety@eaton.com.